Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Our final question in the evil and suffering unit is, how do religious believers respond to suffering? Now, we're going to look at four main ways that the religious believers respond. The first one of those is prayer. Now, often in exams we get this answer, to the question, how do religious believers respond to suffering? They pray. And that is the basic response. We often hear it on the news when there's a tragic event like the tsunamis or events, then people will say, they're in our prayers. World leaders, Barack Obama and David Cameron, often say things like, yes, they're in the prayers of the country. So we'll often say that the first response is to pray to God. Now, often people will respond to that saying, well, did God cause the problem in the first place by making the tsunami, by making the person kill someone, or things like that? But the first major response of religious believers is prayer. The second one is actually charity. Now, this one obviously is a bit more useful. A lot of times when there's a major world event and people die or people actually experience a great deal of suffering, the first response of people is to actually give money. We'll often hear appeals like the recent, in 2014, the Ebola problem in the world, and that actually caused people to put their hands in their pockets and actually give to charity, to actually give to lots of different people across the world. And in Unit 5 of this, when we look at poverty, you're going to look at two major world charities, Opportunity International and Islamic Relief. Now, there's no problem whatsoever in you actually referring to those once you've learnt about them in years to come or in months to come. So Opportunity International, Islamic Relief, I'll put links onto the learning environment that we have there so you can have a quick look if you want. The third one is karma. Now, karma is the idea of what goes around comes around, and people will often respond to suffering by saying, well, they must have done something bad in a former life, or something bad must have happened to them because they've done something bad. So people will often get their reward or punishment in the future. So often, whilst it's not the best response to suffering actively, some people will say, well, actually, it's the one that works, because by saying that people who are suffering deserve it in some way because of what they've done in their former life or because of what they've done in their life now, then that's a way of dealing with suffering and actually coming to terms with it. And the final one, the most difficult one, I suppose, is the idea of forgiveness. Now, I'm going to show you a quick video here of a lady called G. Walker and the story that happened to her. And I want you just to think about that and respond to that, and actually to think about what actually happened to her in her life.
The last images of Anthony Walker. These pictures were taken by a security camera on a bus. They show Anthony, his girlfriend and his cousin Marcus Binns. Marcus is trying to get the bus to stop. Moments later, Anthony was attacked. He was 18 and had just taken his A-levels. He hoped to study law. He was also a committed Christian.
Anthony was my prayer partner. We prayed together. We agreed. He was in training to be a good man. So, making decisions in the home, we made it together. We talked about it because he was 18 and I was preparing him to be a good husband and father.
That was all ended by 20-year-old Paul Taylor. He was the one who hit Anthony with an ice axe. 17-year-old Michael Barton was with him. He'd brought the weapon to the scene. This is where the trouble began. Michael Barton started shouting racist abuse at Anthony, his cousin and girlfriend Louise Thompson. He'd been smoking cannabis in the pub across the road from the bus stop where the three were waiting. Anthony and his group decided to ignore it and walk away. They missed the bus and headed towards this park. It was pitch black and Marcus was convinced they were being followed.
This is where Anthony was ambushed. Marcus says he suddenly realised there was a dark, shadowy figure crouching in the bushes. He panicked and shouted, "Run!" Louise says that moment was terrifying.
And then they just jumped on him and I just ran. And I just blanked every time while I was running and screaming. All I could do was me screaming. And I couldn't see nothing really, just till I got to the end of the road where it stopped.
This is an ice axe. It's an exact replica of the one used to kill Anthony. He was hit with the blunt end. It embedded in his skull and caused extensive brain damage. Barton admitted at one point he tried to remove it, but couldn't. On the run, this is Barton and Taylor at a ferry terminal in Dover. It's less than 6 hours after the murder. They were heading to Amsterdam. The two left the scene, burnt Taylor's clothes and abandoned the getaway car. Barton then drove them south in another vehicle. Back in Liverpool, Anthony's family were being told he was dead. Anthony's murder stunned the community. The police said they were convinced it was a racist attack. Michael Barton's brother is Joey, who plays for Manchester City. He even appealed for his brother to give himself up. Barton and Taylor did eventually do just that. They flew back to Britain and were arrested and then charged with murder. Anthony's family say they forgive his killers, but they miss him every day.
I go in the kitchen, I still make his tea. We still put an extra meal aside, which no one will touch, because no one dare say who it belongs to, because we all know whose it is. We'll never get over this. It's someone's taken a piece of my heart. How do you mend a broken heart? You can't mend a broken heart.
Hard going, and I feel justice has been done. I am pleased with the outcome, and I'm sure they'll get the maximum sentence.
Did you expect right from the start that you would get this verdict, the one you wanted?
I knew from the start there was only one verdict. There's got to be only one.
It must be very hard being in the same room as the defendant's families as well. Just describe the emotions when the verdict was read out.
Not really. It's okay. And I know the next question. Do I forgive them? At the point of death, Jesus said, I forgive them because they don't know what they do. I've got to forgive them. I still forgive them. My family and I still stand by what we believe. Forgiveness.
How does the family move on now, Jesus?
It'll be difficult, but we've got no choice but to live on for Anthony. Each of us will take a piece of him and we'll carry on his life.
Okay, there you go, ladies and gentlemen, the idea of G. Walker and what she actually did, and how she learnt that forgiving was actually the only way she could come to terms with the suffering after the death of her son Anthony. Very, very brave thing to do, and as she said, she had to forgive because she was a Christian, and on the cross Jesus forgave those people who killed him. Father, forgive them. Now, each one of those responses, either prayer, charity, karma or forgiveness, are ways in which religious believers respond to suffering. Now, in this particular question, the idea is, what would you do? What would actually be your response in those kind of situations? I really hope that you never ever have to make this choice actually, but we can show some empathy. And at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think?